Hello guys, it's Super GT here. Welcome to round number 8 of the AOR Le Mans series around circuits of the Americas. So there's one thing I learned about this track whilst practicing for it. So I did a couple of practice sessions this week in preparation for this race, and there's one thing I realised, and that is I hate circuits of the Americas. I absolutely hate it. It's just these curbs, they are absolutely awful in this game, and it makes it so hard to get a consistent lap, just sliding about everywhere, and it made it a really painful knowing that I have to do 26 laps of these curbs. But that's the way it is, and I sign up to the championship, and I've got to take the good tracks with the bad tracks. So unfortunately I had to bear an hour of this track, but I got fairly quick at it in the end. Obviously not as quick as the top guys in the league, but not too far off. But it's just a matter of consistency. Getting over the curbs, you can lose so much time. So it's pretty much a race of attrition, trying to make as small amount of mistakes as possible whilst your competitors make mistakes. So yeah, it was very difficult race in that respect. So for those of you who don't know what you're seeing right now, this is the qualifying lap. So you get 4 laps to do qualifying. It says 5 there, but one is your rolling up lap, we can call it. So you get 4 laps to set your best lap, and then you have an roughly hour long race, and there's 10 rounds, and this is the 8th one. So in the championship at the moment, I'm sitting in 6th position on 52 points, and I'm 25 points behind Deus, who is in 5th. He's actually not in this race, so it's a chance for me to catch up points. Well, in fact, I definitely will catch up some points, just a matter of how many, I don't know. Well, I do know now, because I'm recording this after, but you'll have to watch the video to find out how many points I get. So I'm 6th in the championship. I'm 16 points ahead of 7th, so a bit of a safe gap there. Jamie's in 7th, and Robo's 8th. LMR Hybrid is 9th, actually, after not starting a few races and not finishing in Spa. After rage quitting after getting brake checked, we can call it, some people call it brake check, but I think he just misjudged it a little bit. But there we go, in 7th position on the grid, about as good as I could get, really. But I'll talk you through the first phase of the race. Why not? Normally I leave it at this point. So away from the grid, Robo was a bit far behind his grid slot, I thought, but not too much of a worry. I go for the outside and managed to keep 7th position, so I didn't lose any positions, didn't gain any. But it's always good to stay at least where you are and not go backwards. So this is the really tricky section. These curbs are absolutely horrible, and you can actually get stuck on them, and your car can actually ride along them like rails, and it's very easy to spin out of these curbs. This section feels really clumsy and really horribly put together to me. I don't really like this corner here. Is an absolute nightmare. The curb there on the inside really throws your car all over the place, and it was so hard to get any consistency around that corner, especially. You'll see Robo throughout the race, especially on the early laps, especially struggling for that section. And look at this, everyone is in a big old bundle here together. So many Corvettes, pretty much everyone's running the Corvette in this league. You might as well just call it the Corvette League. And in many ways I wish I had chosen that car after running it around Spa in my recent endurance video. So coming down the back straight, you can see the Viper with Robo on the outside, managed to keep it around the outside of Hybrid. I'm going to look up the inside, but they're going to make contact, and I do go past eventually. And out front we have our usual suspects of Shuffle and KPTK92. They're going to run away with it, it looks like. And Hybrid's actually come back at me, but I've got the inside line again for this long right hander, based I think of Turn 8 at Turkey, the famous Istanbul circuit, or at least the Turn 8 is famous for having those 4 apexes. That doesn't quite match up to it, but this track is basically an amalgamation of loads of different tracks, and they've put together their favourite bits, but it just doesn't work for me at all. Don't really like it at all. Phil actually having a bit of an accident there. Not very consistent throughout this race, but then no one was really. I wasn't. So yeah, I'm running out of things to say, so I'm going to leave you here. Enjoy the rest of the race, and I shall speak to you at the end. So there we have it, the end of the race. I finished in 6th in the end after running in 7th for a lot of it, especially after the pit stop. And, well, obviously at the end there, getting 6th position from Robo. It was quite a tense finish actually. I put in quite a few good laps at the end, fairly consistent for the last 3 or 4 laps. So I managed to close that gap while they were battling as well with Hybrid. So that helped me to catch up. Then he made a bit of a mistake going through that weird left corner up the hill towards the back straight. Managed to just about dip up the inside and get the position. Parked it on the apex so he couldn't cut back. I did the same thing at the end of the straight and managed to just about keep 6th place. And that should give me, if I'm correct, 8 points, which will put me on a total of 60 points so far. So that leaves me 17 behind Deus in the championship, who is in 5th and wasn't present in this race. So moving on to the next round, we are looking at Road Atlanta full circuit next race next week, which will be 44 laps, or at least for the LMP1 cars. And that'll be quite a decent track actually. I think I will do okay around there. It's one of my favourite tracks in the game, a lot better than Circuit of the Americas. As I made clear at the start of the race, I don't like this track, but Road Atlanta I am a fan of, so hopefully I can do well around there. I have set myself a target of trying to finish 4th at one race at least or higher before the end of the season. So we've got Road Atlanta, then we've got the hour-and-a-half race at Le Mans, and I think that will probably be the best chance of finishing the top 4 because obviously you have the long straights, not too technical. It's these technical corners where I'm losing speed. It's the traction zones really, and Le Mans doesn't really have a huge amount of them, which will help me I think. Maybe the hour-and-a-half might help as well. But that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe if you want to see more of the same. I'll bring these videos out every Friday. We've got 2 more videos to come out, 2 more rounds of this season, and then we're done. Not sure what we're going to be doing next season, but obviously stay tuned for details on that. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, guys. Let me know in the comment section below what your favourite part of the video was, and hit the like button if you like the video. So I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.